What is good in the hood? Welcome to the Mr. Sport podcast with your host Yiannis and my co-host Adam Holt. What is good in the hood, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Mr. Sport podcast, the first edition of the Mr. Sport podcast with my good friend and partner in crime, Adam Holt. How's it going, Adam?
Not too bad, Yiannis. How you doing, buddy?
Not bad. I got the flu. I am down with the weather at the moment, but I am feeling good. Feeling good.
Wow, glad. It's that haircut. Look how short it is on the back and side. It's
I know,
terrible.
mate. I know. Check it out.
Going bald in his old age.
That's it. That's it, mate. That's what the skin fade's for, man. Just trying to hide it.
Classic. Well, no, glad we could jump on, Yiannis, and I know we've been chatting about kind of trying to collaborate on something for a little time now. So it's good that we can finally find some time in both our schedules and try and record this podcast and see how it goes.
For sure, man. For sure. I mean, I specialize primarily in nutrition, and you are one of the best in the game at strength and conditioning. So I think coming together to do this and to spread some solid information is a good thing to get done.
No, absolutely. Hopefully, we can write a few truths and help some people out along the way. So I'm definitely excited to partner with you and see where we can take this podcast.
For sure, bro. For sure. Let's do this.
Cool. Well, I guess again, kind of, shall we start at the beginning of everything? Obviously, you've built brand Mr. Sport from what was nothing a few years ago to where it is today, and I mean, myself, obviously, we've had conversations of kind of how you're going to build it and what you're going to do and stuff, but would love to kind of get down to the original background and what was the driving force behind the idea to not only go into the nutrition industry, but to go into health and wellness and obviously launch Mr. Sport, which you're repping today. I need a new hat, by the way. You need to send me one.
I'll have to get one sent out.
Yeah, get one over to me.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's quite a long journey, but in order to summarize it, so basically, you studied with me. You and I studied our masters together actually in Southampton, and nutrition was just one of those things for me that seemed to have just click. It takes a hell of a long time for me to learn anything, and I think with nutrition, it was something that instantly made sense. And then I came out into the world of work, into the world of coaching, and there was just a lot of misinformation and conflicting sort of evidence. So I took it upon myself, I suppose, to start my own journey, my own business, and yeah, really tried to clear up this industry and try and help the Lindas of the world.
Yeah, good old Linda. I a lot of the content you're producing and everyone commenting always asking how Linda is, and I think we've got a shout out for Linda later on in one of our Q&A sections as well. So we can part Linda for now. I guess that kind of leads into obviously kind of the industry as a whole. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of gurus and computer gurus out there. I guess, how are you trying to be different? What are you doing that's different? And kind of, if you could pinpoint the major issue or the two or three major issues that you're trying to clean up, what does that look like for you? And kind of, how's that journey going?
I mean, I think when I started this journey, my idea was just to come across as a normal guy that's trying to provide sound advice. There's a lot of clean eaters on the web. There's a lot of keto zealots. There's a lot of intermittent fasters, and really, I just wanted to come from from a standard sort of standpoint where I provide the information and you decide for yourself what you want to do with it. And there isn't, a lot of people think that their way is the best way, but this isn't a one size fits all, and I suppose there's many ways to skin a cat, if you like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely nutrition and an industry as a whole it's a simple thing, but people overcomplicate the heck out of it. It becomes something where people are trying to chase kind of the minute kind of differences versus simple basic habits would make a huge difference to a lot of people. And I think that's so true in life, with nutrition, relationships, business, absolutely everything. But obviously you're finding your little sweet spot with Mr. Sport and the health and wellness game.
For sure. I mean, obviously, an element of that is the weight cutting. So, when I was actually in my third year of my degree in Southampton, I joined an MMA club, and that's where I first learned how to cut weight. Well, or not learned how to cut weight, if you like. It was a fucking terrible. It was terrible, mate.
That's how
But
you
yeah,
got that beautiful face of yours as well, Yiannis, of all the ugliness.
mate. But yeah, I think the first time I had to cut something like 6 kilos, and I just starved myself. I didn't know anything about water retention or carbohydrates, glycogen, anything like that. So I sort of just starved myself, and then went in the sauna, 3 or 4 days before the fight.
Passed
Didn't
out on
drink
the scales.
didn't drink any water. Was throwing up all the way down to Exeter. It was like a 4 or 5 hour journey from Southampton. And then by the time we got there, I was half a kilo over anyway. So I ended up having to compete at the higher weight class. So that was really when I realised that I need to pay a bit more attention to my nutrition. And
Yep.
when I did, that's sort of where Mr. Sport sprouted from. I part of it was to do with weight cutting because it was the sport that I was interested in, and I followed the UFC and other MMA promotions quite closely. And the other element was the fact that there's just so much conflicting information, even from some of the gurus, if you like, that we look up to. That I just thought, this is something that I can build a business around, and try and help more people. So that's really where my journey and the whole Mr. Sport ethos came from.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned kind of the MMA, and obviously I've seen you do some work with like the Bellators of the world and stuff as well. Are you seeing, I mean, that industry's got a terrible reputation. Well, it used to have a terrible reputation for kind of weight cuts and stuff. I know there's been some protocols put in place by the governing bodies, but obviously working with the professional fighters and folks who are trying to make a living out of it, are you seeing it changing in terms of mentality, mindset, and approach, or is it still a little bit wild west what they're trying to do as well in terms of trying to hit these weight cuts and kind of your example, jumping in a sauna for 12 hours trying to hope that they're going to get down and things like that? Curious to know if you're finding the industry itself actually improving and getting better as a whole.
I think so. I think it is. I mean, yourself, coming from a sports science background as well. You've worked in rugby, you was with London Irish and stuff. That, a lot of these other sports, football, they have had sports science for a very long time. So it seems like, they have their physio, they've got their strength and conditioning coach, their nutritionist, even, their psychologist. In MMA, it's not like that. You've got your jiu-jitsu coach who probably teaches you striking, who probably does your weight cuts, who is also your PT. So there's holes in knowledge there, and I don't think it's the coach's fault. It's just the fact that sports science wasn't really, the sport of MMA is still young. So it's sort of like community sport, if you like. They have no reason to have physios and psychiatrists and nutritionists in there. So things have changed, though. I mean, since I've been doing this for 3 years now, and we've helped almost 200 fighters cut weight. And I like to think that these fighters aren't just cutting the weight; they're actually learning a bit about the process, which means when they're cutting weight, their friends that are, their teammates that are also cutting weight for competitions and whatnot, are also following the same procedure. So I'm hoping that people now are starting to wise up a little bit, and weight cutting seems to be on the up, in terms of safety and effectively cutting weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. There's still a long way to go.
No, for sure. And obviously we talked about kind of the complexities and people overcomplicating this industry. How different is it, your approach to working with some of these folks who are getting in the ring to knock 10 bells out of each other versus working with the Lindas and of the world and kind of your Joe blogs on kind of day-to-day weight loss and stuff? I know the underlying principles are probably the same, but is there anything different that you do or approaching differently to those different conversations?
I think I think athletes, there's a little bit more work because obviously cutting weight, you have to take into consideration things like electrolytes and their performance. It's not just about them weighing a certain weight. There's also the after process of making sure they refuel and rehydrate properly. But they tend to be quite good at just sticking to the plan. Whereas the challenges of the everyday people that are trying to lose weight or get healthier or build muscle, their challenges really remain in the habits, the sticking to what they're trying to do, not getting caught up in all these myths and misconceptions. And yeah, so I think the challenges are very different in that one is perhaps a little bit more complicated, whereas the other one is a lot more coaching, if you like, to keep them on track.
No, for sure. I think it's interesting being able to see both sides of the fence. There's so many things that start in professional sport and ideas and philosophies that get trialed with the top athletes, and then they filter down to mainstream as well. So definitely giving you some good perspective on kind of where that's at. Switching gears a little bit, obviously we've talked about Mr. Sport and the work you do on both sides of the professional side of things, and obviously the general population as well. Kind of obviously you're building a brand, building a business. Kind of what's next for Mr. Sport, what's on the horizon, what's coming around the corner. I know you've got a supplement that's on the way soon. Would
Yeah.
love to hear kind of what's next for you as you kind of build and grow as a businessman. Are you looking at the education route? I know you've got a tour and kind of some lectures coming up next year as well. Nice little plug there for you. Not getting paid for not getting paid for this either. So yeah, no, would love to hear kind of what's coming next for you. So what's down the line for Mr. Sport?
Yeah, so this weekend I am actually finalising the flavour for the supplement. So the supplement now is all done. It took 9 months of planning and sorting the right manufacturer, and now we found them. It's sort of finalising the taste. So that should be out before Christmas. And it's a rehydration powder primarily for athletes in weight restricted sports. So, your wrestlers, even bodybuilders, I suppose, MMA fighters, boxers, people like that. And yeah, it's just a more convenient and cheaper and in fact safer way to refuel, because I've in the last 3 years I've been to countless cities around the world where I've had to go to the shop and get refuel stuff for the athletes. And some shops obviously in some countries don't have certain things, and you can never be sure what contains what. So with this powder, it's just, obviously it's not a substitute for solid foods, but it's something that at least if you don't have the resources around you, you at least get the bare minimum in, and you can at least refuel, especially if you've had a tough cut. So yeah, that's one thing I'm doing. And then from January there is the Mr. Sport Expo, which is the live show, where I'll be having some banter and clearing up some myths and just all round, I think,
Getting into trouble.
trying to help people feel a little less confused and a lot more in control in the new year, because I want to try and make this the last year where people come up with these new year new me bollocks that they just don't stick to. So I'm thinking I want to try and help clear things up so people have a straight head and they know what they need to do, and they know that it's not an all or nothing approach, that there is an element of balance, and yeah, have a laugh while we're at it as well, bro. That's what life's about.
I saw you eating that Milky Bar on Instagram the other day. I was like, people will be blaspheming you for that, Yiannis. That's
They
not what
were.
a nutritionist should be eating, really. That one, mate. It's terrible.
Should I be
As
eating an apple instead?
an apple and almond butter, like the picture I sent you the other day. That's what it should be. Healthy eating, buddy. Healthy eating.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
No. And are you going to when are you going to be releasing dates for the tour and the expo? Is that kind of a Jan 1st release date? Are they going to be coming out before Christmas? I'm sure folks who start tuning and listen are going to want to find out more and stuff. So it'd be great to hear when that's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, that will be out around the same time. So in about a month's time, probably less. The tickets will be up for sale. The first event is in January, end of January, and that will be in London. We'll have one in Liverpool, in your hometown.
The hometown.
Scousland.
Yes, loving it.
And yeah, we're taking it from there. At the moment, it's a lot of the planning, but it's something that we're definitely putting in place. But dates will be sorted soon.
No,
So yeah,
absolutely. That's awesome, and glad to hear that you're they're definitely progressing and growing from our early conversations of how to build a little business, which to where it is now going on tour.
that's it,
It's great to see. It's great to see.
mate. It's
Right.
great. It's been a long journey, bro. I remember 3 years ago chatting to you on the phone with not a pot to piss in, no brand, nothing. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing,
Absolutely.
and here we are now.
Board,
Chatting
boarding
about.
a boarding a plane to Los Angeles and Las Vegas. I remember. I was just like, oh my goodness, here we go. Is he coming back alive? And here you are. Here you are to tell the tale of a terrible haircut.
Yeah, what a journey. What
No wonder you're wearing a hat. It's terrible. Anyway, I digress. Let's kind of chat what's coming down the pipeline. Then obviously we wanted episode 1 to be kind of short, sweet, and to the point of giving folks a bit more of a real look at you versus the 10 seconds you might see you on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook. So it's great to kind of really start to understand Yiannis, and we're going to keep kind of unwinding the Mr. Sport journey as we go along and kind of touching on some key topics. But I'd love to kind of lay out where we're going to take this podcast, what we're going to do, and kind of the journey we're going to hopefully take people on as well. I know we've chatted about bringing on some guests, everything from fighters to business people and in the industry and outside of the industry of sport as well, and really trying to evolve and kind of make this as fun and interactive as possible. But what are some of kind of the key topics that you obviously want to try and address? And again, I'm sure there's going to be some controversy along the way. Strap yourselves in, fasten the seatbelt, and here we go. But kind of like what's kind of the next few shows going to look like, so people know and can look forward to what's coming down the pipe.
Well, I think that the main thing here is to clear up these misconceptions and create a podcast that provides sound evidence, just sound advice. And I think that's why we came together to do this, me with the nutrition side, because that's sort of primarily where I work, and you with the exercise and the business side. I just thought, there's a lot of coaches out there that perhaps don't know where to go next. And I think that that's something you and I can provide an insight into.
Yep.
And like I said, clearing up misconceptions, a lot of food myths for the Lindas of the world, and just trying to help people feel a little bit less confused, really is the goal, and have a laugh and hopefully inspire people along the way, man. That's literally what this is about. Just creating a different platform. This is new to me, so I'm used to doing short videos and infographics. So this is another platform that I think we can really, use to spread good knowledge, a laugh, and yeah, help people to just not have to stress about the smaller details. Nutrition is something that should complement your life, and even training as well. There's something that should really complement your life. They're not something that you should stress over, because there's people have bills to pay, people have got family issues. There's so much going on in the world, and the last thing they need to worry about is whether or not they can eat a bagel in the morning. So
Well, I had a nice Italian dinner last night and ate half a loaf, so I'm not feeling too bad about that this morning.
Nice.
It was
That's
fantastic. One of those homemade ciabatta loaves with like the nice little sprinkle of salt and rosemary on top. Absolutely delightful. It was well worth it.
right little chef over there, aren't you, Adam?
Oh no, I was eating out last night. I wasn't going to cook that myself. But no, it's all good. But yeah, let's kind of, I guess, shall we bring Linda into the conversation? I feel like it'd be right to do so. I mean, obviously I've not had a chance personally to meet her yet, so I think it'd be great to have her as part of this. And I know you put a post out there on your social feeds asking for some questions and answers. So let's take 5-10 minutes here just to answer some of these questions that people have from day one. And I know there was a good response, which obviously for a brand new podcast, brand new show, thank you everyone for supporting it. And again, when this goes out, like, share, comment, and let's start spreading the word of the Mr. Sport podcast. But let's kind of take on some of these questions. Let's see what we can do.
Sure. So obviously, Linda, my girl Linda, Linda's almost like a persona or a stereotype, or someone that I think everyone knows a Linda. everyone has a Linda in their office that is, she works hard, she cares for her family, but she tends to get sort of sucked into these diet fads and misconceptions, and she goes on Juice Plus and Herbalife diets, and
Oof.
I think are we allowed? Are we going to get in trouble for mentioning them? Or are we all right with mentioning them?
I think we're too small for any issues right now.
No, well, not yet, bro, not yet. Anyway.
Give it a
But
couple of years, then we'll have to edit it. But carry on.
yeah, so I think everyone knows a Linda, and the whole without really understanding what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's who Linda is, and I often refer to her and Sally as well, as the women of the industry that do get taken for a ride. So that's who I'm trying to help out. I think that's who we're trying to help.
No, for sure. Again, you need to find the male alter ego as well. Keep it balanced, Yiannis. That's your next task.
That's it. There's Phil. I often mention Phil and Greg. They're up there as well.
There you go. The four of them. There's always one.
That's it. That's it.
Awesome. Well, I've got a few of the the questions in front of me here now. So let's kind of pick one here. So there's a question from Jody. If I want to lose weight, do you suggest low fat options, sugar content, lots of conflicting information? So again, I guess kind of distill this down. Kind of to lose weight, do I go low fat? Do I track sugar content? Kind of. I know you've touched on this before, but kind of let's kind of just distill it and break it down for one last time and kind of answer directly for Jody.
So, Jody, there is a study out there that actually has tested on a low fat and a low carbohydrate diet where calories across the board were the same, and essentially it made no difference. So it does depend on the foods that you like. Essentially, though, it's just creating an energy deficit. So it's reducing the amount of calories you're consuming on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. It's not about sugar content, it's not about fat content, it's more about overall energy consumption, so calories in total. um I'm not surprised that this question has come about, because obviously back in the 90s it was that fats were the villain, and everyone was on a low fat diet because they believed fats made you fat. And now, because of the keto fanatics, it's the keto ball bags, it's like everyone thinks you must have lots of fats, and restrict sugar. But in essence, it's doing the same thing. It's doing the same thing. So calories are the goal. Reducing your calories, creating a calorie deficit. And yeah, how you choose to do that is completely up to you. It could just be minor tweaks in your diet. Maybe if you are eating a lot in the evening, maybe cut down. If you tend to snack at work, that's something that you could address. But ultimately, it's not down to specifically your fat content or your carbohydrate or sugar content.
No, for sure.
Anything to add, Adam? Go on, mate.
And I was just going to say, one of the things I always think as well, like if I ever talk to somebody and they come up to me, oh, how can I lose weight? And simple thing to me is like, take a picture of every meal you eat for 3 or 4 days, and you'd be surprised how big the portions are.
That's
Like,
it. Portion
very,
control.
very surprised. I mean, it's all well and good having like MyFitnessPal and those things, but logging in 6 ounces of chicken, this and that, it's like I can't be arsed with that. Just purely taking a picture and just saying and looking at it and being like, holy crap, like that's a big pot of oatmeal I've just eaten there, or that's a huge smoothie that I've just made because you poured 4 times into the cup like I normally do. So just simple little things like that to get a perspective on kind of the size and the volume, and like you said, reduce portion sizes at that stage then, and you start to create that calorie deficit, and before you know it, things start to drop off and you're in a good spot.
For sure.
Another question as well came in about the opinion on 72-hour fast, and I know you and I were talking about this before the show started. I mean, if that's something you want to do, like, fine, by all means, but you'll be very, very grumpy after a short 12 to 24 hours maybe is okay, but after that you are going to be the grumpiest person on the planet. The term hangry comes to mind. Is kind of what I think about. I think I've done 24 hours before, I think, just out of wanting to try it, and it was horrendous, like absolutely horrendous. So I would not even want to fathom 72 hours. I know some people have, but yeah, for me personally, it's pointless. Create a calorie deficit.
For sure. I mean, if you're doing it for religious purposes, if that's a thing, then fine. But there are much easier ways to create an energy deficit than to starve yourself for like 3 days.
One of the next ones was best snacks for gluten intolerant celiacs. I mean, we're just going to throw out the fruit, veg, and normal food, but any particular kind of, if you're on the run, you need a snack, you're walking past, I don't know, Tesco's late shop or whatever it might be. Thoughts around that one?
I mean, anything that doesn't contain wheat or gluten. I don't want to sound sarcastic, but that's essentially it. You just have to avoid certain foods that contain wheat and gluten. So, there are certain yogurts, certain cheese, cheese snacks, so like Baby Bells and whatnot, cheese strings that all provide a little bit of protein. Your Greek yogurts, fruit, like you said, nuts. There are certain protein bars that won't contain any gluten or wheat. It's really not that difficult to find snacks. It's more things like pastas, perhaps certain oats, bread, things like that you would have to be careful with. I think snacking shouldn't be too much of an issue. I know even a number of like 100-calorie and below crisps, if that's your thing, won't contain any gluten or wheat. So yeah, there's loads of stuff out there to choose from. So
no, I tried it's called congee. Have you ever heard of it? I tried it the other day. It's an Asian, it's like a root vegetable that they make into noodles or rice, and it's basically like eating, it's like basically eating air basically, but it's really kind of bulky and filling, but it's got like hardly any calories. I'll get a link and I'll share it with you. You can share it on your website, but I tried it the other day. It's absolutely phenomenal.
send me it, mate. What is it? A low carb? I assume because it's a vegetable, it's just low calorie, isn't it?
Yeah, low carb, low calories. It's like it's a root vegetable. I found it at the local Asian store here, but it's absolutely delightful. And they have like a noodle version, a rice version. Great alternative. I'll send you the link. We can share it out with everybody.
Hey, what are you doing going in those Asian stores, bro, with those golden locks?
I mean, I've got it cut at the moment. I've got a trim, so it's
you stand out like a sore thumb in there, bro.
I stand out like a sore thumb anywhere with my giraffe legs and stuff, so it's all right. I'm not too concerned. No, awesome. But I know, again, I guess we'll kind of leave it there. We've got some other questions, and again, just so folks know, we'll be kind of answering questions as we go along every week. So definitely keep reaching out to Yiannis and myself. We'll link our social media links on this podcast and stuff. So definitely kind of keep reaching out with questions and anything sport, anything health, nutrition, exercise. We can also start diving into business at some point as well, as we get into a little bit more of my background. And we look forward to kind of catching up with everybody on episode number 2 shortly.
For sure, bro. I am buzzing. This has been a pleasure.